Hey guys, so we've talked about the movement test, and we've seen that movement applies only to phrases. If you can move something to the front of the sentence, then you know it's a phrase. So this is the way that we're discovering what are the phrases of a sentence. We're not going to start out assuming that any particular thing is a phrase in the sentence. We're just starting fresh from the beginning, and we're asking, how do sentences behave? What do they do? What do they do differently if you do something which is moving a different item? So just like the movement test, we have two other tests. And that's what we're going to see throughout the semester, that whenever we have a test that will tell us about the phrase structure of a sentence, we will always have more than one test. So typically we'll have 3 tests. And the reason that we want to have 3 is because imagine you apply one test, and let's say that it's movement. And imagine that in applying the test, something goes wrong and the sentence is changed by mistake. You might conclude, oh yeah, that's a phrase because that sounds like an okay sentence. But actually what happened is that you didn't apply the rule in the correct way. So we mitigate that by always applying at least 2 rules. And really the best practice is to apply 3 rules whenever you're examining the structure of a sentence. So our second test is going to be the WH question test. So if you start out with the same sentence, I like the blueberry bagel, notice that somebody could ask you, what do you like? And a possible answer would be the blueberry bagel. Now, if someone said, what do you like? You could also answer that by saying, I like the blueberry bagel. That doesn't sound impossible. It just sounds a little bit repetitive, right? Because when someone asks you a question, they're looking for a specific piece of information. What is the thing such that you like that thing? That's really what they want to know from you. So it sounds natural to, in response, provide just the answer, the blueberry bagel. But it's not a problem if you were to repeat the part of the sentence that was in the question, oh, I like blueberry bagels. The idea about the WH question test is that when you can use a piece of a sentence as a response in a WH question test, you know it's a phrase. So this is our second phrase structure test. So, for example, if you had, I like the blueberry bagel, and the question was, what do you like? And the answer was something like right? So you're chatting with someone and you're talking about food and different types of things, and you say, well, what do you like? And they say, That is not going to satisfy your curiosity. You're going to look at that person and you're going to be waiting. Yes, what is it? I'm waiting. So you have an impression that the person has not finished answering your question. And that is what we call an unacceptable answer to a WH question. Unacceptable just meaning, wow, that sounds really weird if somebody were to answer my question in that way. I would not expect somebody to say if I ask them a question. Regardless of what the question is, there's no question that can be answered and sound like a normal sentence. So similarly, if someone asks, what do you like? And then the answer is blueberry, it's not necessarily impossible to say that sentence, right? Because you can say, I like blueberry. That sounds like an okay sentence, But notice that the meaning has changed. So this is what's really important to look out for when you're doing the constituent structure tests. What do you like? Blueberry. This meaning has to correspond to I like the blueberry bagel. But blueberry here and here are being used in different ways. They have different meanings. So whenever you have an example of a sentence where the meaning has changed, you're going to know that that is not a sentence that is working for you for the test. If you think about maintaining the meaning of the sentence and somebody says, what do you like? And you mean to express to them, I like the blueberry bagel, and you say to them, blueberry, you have not done the job of answering the question, because you need to include that whole thing, the blueberry bagel. All of those things must be present in order to form a natural answer to that question. So that is our second test for knowing what the phrase is in a sentence, and you can apply that to many different types of phrases. We're going to see that we have in English noun phrases, verb phrases, prepositional phrases. We don't have to worry about all of those details right now, but all of those phrases will undergo the same generalizations. Our third test is what we call replacement. So replacement is when you have a piece of a structure in a sentence and you ask if you can replace that piece of structure with a single word that means the same thing. And that means the same thing is really important. So you have, I like the blueberry bagel. You could have said, I like it. And it can refer to the blueberry bagel. So, you imagine you're in the shop and you're pointing to the thing that you want is the blueberry bagel, and you say, I like it. That is one way to use that pronoun. The pronoun it refers back to the blueberry bagel. And notice what happens if you don't use the whole phrase. So, I like the blueberry bagel, and you form instead, I like the it. Imagine somebody said that sentence to you, I like the it. Even if they were pointing and showing you, it's the blueberry bagel that I'm talking about. So they're doing something to indicate the meaning. That still sounds like a really weird sentence. I like the it. Doesn't sound like something that we could say in English. So we're going to say that that is an unacceptable sentence. Why is it unacceptable? Because we have taken the word it and we have used that to replace blueberry bagel. Just these two words, blueberry bagel, not the whole, the blueberry bagel. If we use it to replace the whole, the blueberry bagel, we get I like it, which is good. So what that means is that the blueberry bagel is necessarily made up of those three words. You can't just leave one of the words out and say that it's still a phrase. Okay? So another way to do that would be if you have, I like the blueberry it. It would make sense to say that in some context. Imagine that somebody is asking you out of the different types, what do you like that's blueberry? And you want to say bagels, talking about cookies versus pie versus bagels, and you say, oh, I like the blueberry it. The blueberry one, in other words. You can say that, the blueberry one, but notice that it cannot occur in that position. So you can't have this single word it referring back to this constituent that includes the blueberry, but not the single word bagel. And so we see that there are restrictions on how phrases can be manipulated in the sentence that can help us to discover how the structure of sentences is depending upon the meaning of that sentence. So when we look at an example, you always want to keep in mind when you're doing the constituent structure tests that the meaning of the sentence has to stay the same. The meaning of the sentence has to stay the same. If the meaning changes, then all bets are off. Then you cannot conclude anything about the structure of that sentence. So in other words, you want to be really, really careful, and this is something that is true of linguistics in general. You want to be very, very careful and very detailed in doing your analyses, because sometimes having one word missing or having one word there can make all the difference in the world. Sometimes something that will sound very natural can become very unnatural just because you add a word into a weird place. Okay, so we're going to go over many, many examples of sentences, and we're going to explore what is the phrase structure of these sentences. How can we find out? How can we discover that? And then the assignment will ask you to do the same thing. So I'll give you sentences and I'll ask you, are these words in the sentence working as a phrase? Are they working as a constituent? You'll apply the 3 tests and you'll give the answer, yes or no.